was pretty fucking long. But all right, so got a guest speaker up here, Mr. Ryan. Won't insert the name, last name, because okay. So why did I choose Ryan? Right, like, well, number one, right, he's my buddy, right, good friend. Like, not only I've seen him in action, I've seen him through 20 years worth of action. I've seen this dude do some pretty outstanding, incredible things, and now we're just some old vets thrown out into the pasture, which is a bunch of cows chewing grass. And you know, like, I know one of the hardest things that I did when transitioning was giving it all up, right? And coming into this civilian world and saying, holy shit, dude, I've got all these qualifications. I just had a badass 20 years. I'm proud of it. Let me find a community outside of the military. Right? Guess what? It doesn't exist. Right? It's not that it doesn't exist. It's just like, it's not going to come easy, right? It's just something you have to build. Just like your marriage isn't going to be successful unless you build it. Like, people don't just marry into successful marriages. People don't just have best friends and great relationship with friends unless they build it, right? So I wanted to bring Ryan into the boot camp because, like, he probably relates with me the most outside of trade. Now, Ryan never studied the markets as detailed as I did. He didn't go work for an investment bank after the military. He didn't get that live exposure, but he definitely got the leadership parts and the being able to persevere through adversity like I did. So it was when he reached out to me, or if I reached out to you, I don't remember. Like, I think you knew what I was doing, and then you reached out to me, and I blew you off for about a year, and then I reached back out to you because I finally remembered to respond or something like that. I knew he was coming up on retirement. And I knew I didn't want to waste his time with it while he was still in service because he would not have time to properly do it. But I wanted him to come talk to you because, like, I respect Apache pilots probably more than most people in the military because of, number one, they've saved my ass plenty of times. But number two, right? Like, I've always, when I call them in or have my JTAC talk to them in the air or anything like that, like, I'd always like watch them fly over and be like, dude, those guys are like, it took me 3 hours to climb up on this mountain in Afghanistan. And then I had all this like luxury time to make decisions. Oh, you shot at me from that mountain. Well, cool. Like, let me light up a smoke and, make decisions, right? Iraq was a little bit different because it was a lot more like you had to like instantly make a decision because you were in cities. People would drop grenades off roof and then disappear, or shoot an RPG from a window and disappear, and you had to be a lot faster at your decision making. But for an Apache pilot, right? Like, I always respected them because, number one, they really flew very, very close to the mountains, and I always would think, dude, you're about to crash, and then at the last second, they would like fire and pill up. But they, even when we had them engaging in houses, like, it was like I would notice like they would come inches. They would be accurate, flying from high elevations, swooping down, engaging, pinpointing exact buildings, exact locations on buildings, and then not having any collateral damage. Right? So they didn't like just the level of professionalism, the level of decision making, the level of like they can't say coax malfunction switching to 25 AP and HE, right? Like, you guys never did that, right? Like, you guys never can get away with that, like the way we could with our Bradleys. Right? You remember that? 240 malfunction switching to 25. Like, it was just
sending bursts out with that Bradley that went into Iran, I'm sure, but you can't do that from the air. No.
Yeah, so I always had like a huge respect. He's always understood like the level of like decision making that they had to do within split seconds, and literally like if they're off by just like a little bit, right, they're shooting up kids and innocent people and destroying the wrong building, right? So like I wanted him to come up and give you guys a class. And just so you guys know, like these are just two of the things that they train us on when it comes to decision making. And these look like generic definitions, but there are so many detailed plans. Like this is very customizable to what you're doing. Like we have first the pace plan, which is your primary plan. Or we all hear Austin say the first time bullets go down range, right? Everybody forgets the plane and the plane goes out the window. That just means you're planning paragraph 2 of your op order was shit. Then you have your alternate, your contingency, and your emergency. And these are all very, very detailed plan way before you even think about stepping on the battlefield. Then you have your OOPDA loop, all right, which is observe, orient, decide, and act. And so now what I want to do is kind of shut up and hand it over to you and let you introduce yourself and just let you guys know. Guess what? Before I do that, Ryan placed his first trade yesterday. So
it was a good trade. I got to thank Pocket for that, walking me through the process, and I lost $13 on it. It was a good day.
I don't know if you're going to be able to recover from that, dude. Anyway,
Tough
like
one.
so he's been going through the boot camp and he's going to redo the boot camp. I've got him doing specific exercises that I want him to do. And then he's gonna go through the boot camp and then we'll start building a business plan next boot camp with him. But after he does his exercises and goes through the boot camp again. But like, why do I want somebody who's only placed one trade giving you guys, a bunch of traders, a class on decision making? Right? Because it's a new perspective. It's a new thought process. Like you guys keep hearing the mundane bullshit on Twitter about how to trade, and guess what? 90% of them aren't even profitable, right? So if you're gonna listen to mostly unprofitable traders, you might as well listen to somebody who has real world experience in doing proper decision making and mitigating risk. And that's that, right? So without further ado, Ryan, the floor is yours. You need to share a screen or anything?
Yeah, let me jump on the screen.
But
I wanted to touch on what you were saying about community and how you took it for granted. And man, you hit the nail right on the head. When I got out, I was not ready for how soft most people in the outside world were. One experience I had, I walked up to a manager, a young lady at some campsite I was at, and I started talking to her the same way I would have talked to any soldier in the military, and she started crying. And I had to walk out of this office making this, young lady cry. But you're right, the community, it's just not the same as it was in the military. And I got to be honest, I'm going to.
That's what happens when you're honest. We kick you off stage. All right, let's try to bring him back up.
Gotta love Discord.
Fucking Discord. Shift. There he is. Let's invite him to speak. Ryan, we're going to send you the speaker tag again.
I already did, but he's got to accept it.
There he is. All right, try to share screen, and then you left off with "I'm going to be honest," and then Discord was like, "No, we don't like honesty here," and kicked you off. All right, we got your screen.
All right, I'm back in. All right, so I was sharing a story about how when I first got out of the military, I went to talk to this young lady in a management office at some campsite I was at, and it was a simple question I had for her. I wanted to know, why the hell is the basketball court locked up? Right. And I was trying to be real cordial about it. I already asked this lady if she can open it a day before, and it still wasn't open. So I went in and I talked to her any other way I would talk to any soldier that I've ever come across in my life. And this young lady started to cry. So that's when I realized the community I was now in outside of the military was not what I had been used to. And I ended up like you. I took the community that I was raised in. I took it for granted because it's not often you get to get put in a room and learn and be the least experienced and learn from every single person in that room. And it's not often that every single person in a group is working hard and wants to be there. So, having this community, and I appreciate this team, you three have developed something that we can all contribute from. I got to give a shout out real quick. I got Team Wednesday, OG Team Wednesday. They carried me through this. I'm only able to continue this process because of my team or past team that I was in. And I got myself a new battle buddy. Shout out to Laura. We're going to be learning a lot together. She struggles like I do with this fire hose, that we're all trying to learn from. But again,
kind of to hit you up, and a lot of these people probably have experienced this, but like I start each class with around 150, right? And like by the end of it, it usually has 40 people. You'd think this was like, Ranger school, the attrition rate that I had. But then like what it comes down to, and like somebody told me that it was because I cussed. Oh, this class I didn't cuss as much. And I still had the same amount of people drop, right? And I still had the same amount of people succeed, right? And so it has nothing to do with that. But what it comes down to is the work, right? Like the moment you put work out there, people don't like to do it, right? And the bad thing about this work is nobody other than the person going to the boot camp benefits from that work, right? I don't benefit from the work. I don't care about the data. I have way more data than any data, nor do I trust the data that you guys back test. But it's like that work ethic, right? Like that was the one part about the civilian life that I did not understand. Right? When I went to investment banking and sat as a trader on a collateral and margin desk, dude, I was surrounded by Ivy League kids, and I was like this grunt.
Yep, that's where you're supposed to be, though. You have to surround yourself with smarter people.
They looked at me weird every time I talked, and I looked at them weird every time they showed up, right? And the work ethic was like, I understood right out the gate why they were able to make it through those Ivy League schools. And I used to say something like, there's only two types of people. There's a golden spoon and the fighter. And the fighter gets knocked down, and all throughout his life, and he gets back up and bulldozes through life no matter the situation. And then you got the golden spoon person, and like they just get everything handed. And the first time they get knocked down, they don't know how to recover because by that point they're like 24, 25 years old. But when I was surrounded by these Ivy League idiots, geniuses, right? Like I realized that I was not going to outsmart them. But the one thing that I had in my corner was I could outwork them, right? And these kids, I understood exactly why they were Ivy League. They were some of the smartest people on earth, right? And now I see why investment banks targets. I don't even know how I got there, right? To be honest, right? Yeah, I have a master's in statistics, but like
I think the word that I keep hearing smart, and I keep hearing amazing, but disciplined is what's missing. And that's why 60 people, you start with 100, and we got 41 right now in this class. That's why 60 people didn't show up. They don't want to get up at 5 a.m, and they don't want to make a pot of coffee when it's still dark outside. They don't want to start class at 5:30. They don't want to eat breakfast alone. They don't want to do all these things that are required to just past this boot camp alone, just this one boot camp, they don't want to lean forward in it, and they don't want to take initiative, and they don't want to have enough discipline just to do 3 months worth of work.
Well,
And
the crazy part
that's-
is if you don't have the discipline to do that kind of stuff, how are you going to have discipline to follow your rules when you're going through a consecutive loss period or a max drawdown period? And that's the part that I've tried portraying as being the most important, right? Do hard things outside of the market so you can maintain discipline in the market when shit's getting spicy.
Yeah, discipline's the Pee Wee Herman word of the day. Discipline. Every time it's said, I'm going to be screaming outside my window. But you're right. This community, this is the closest I've been able to get to what I am used to. It's where I see everybody's working really hard, and everybody's trying to learn this information as fast as possible, and everybody wants to continue being a part of this community. So Mick, when you asked me to discuss decision-making process with this community, oh man, I was all over it. I was looking forward to it. I've been doing it my whole career. Every course I've gone to, they discuss decision-making process and OODA loops, and there's DIDYAs and the acronyms up the wazoos from the military. If I had $1 for every acronym I learned in the military, I'd have like $15 right now in my account. But this is where I'm going to start my class with you. And this decision-making process, it's nothing more than a framework. It's just a roadmap. It's a checklist of how to make decisions. It was developed by some Air Force colonel. His name's Boyd. You can do a quick search of him. He had an excellent career. He was probably the person that came up with the left hook for Desert Storm back in 1991. But this lesson is going to be about his studies rather than his life. And I think something important is, when I was back in 2002, when I was in basic training, my drill sergeant quoted, he said, "Intelligent individuals learn from everything and everyone. The stupid have all the answers." And then when I was a drill sergeant 12 years later, I started quoting that to my soldiers. I kept telling them, "You think you know everything, it's because you're stupid." And I'd segue into, hey, look around you. You have all these people here. You're able to learn something from every single one of them. And I just recently found out, when I was discussing this with my wife, that wasn't my drill sergeant's quote. That was a Socrates quote that I've been quoting for the past 20 years. Turns out, wasn't my drill sergeant at all.
No. It was definitely a drill sergeant. Socrates stole it from him.
It's always the drill sergeants, I'm sure. Yeah. But yeah, so a little bit more about myself. I joined the military September 11th, 1 year after 9/11. I think, Mick, you had 1 day after 9/11.
Yeah, I did 1 day after, and you did 1 year.
Yeah, I was in a little bit of trouble prior to the military. I had to take a little bit of time with the court system prior to me being allowed to join the military. But once I did, and my drill sergeant told me, these words that he was saying, learn from everybody. Don't think you know more than every single person out there. That's when I really started learning and going to as many courses as I can, and finding as many mentors as I could. I was in some excellent units. Mick and I just discussed 3rd ACR, 3rd Army Cavalry Regiment, before they got rid of their Bradleys. That was probably one of the, if not the best, then one of the best units I've been in. I was in 101st Airborne out of Fort Campbell. I learned to rappel there. I was in the 82nd Airborne. They sent me to school there where I could learn to jump out of airplanes. I was in 515 out of Benning. That's where I served as a drill sergeant. I went to, Army Cavalries. I went to Cavalry Leaders. I'm a sniper school graduate. I also have 5 combat deployments, 4 of them to Iraq, 1 of them to Afghanistan. Longest one was at 15-month deployment with 3rd ACR. Mick and I were Bradley commanders during that deployment. And I also have a humanitarian tour down in Haiti, and I have another world tour up in Europe to deter Russian aggression. That was my last deployment before I finally hung up my hat and walked out of the Army. But what I noticed was the going trend for each of these units and every single course that I went to was they developed the checklist on how to make decisions, and that was the bottom line. And that's what this framework is. It's a checklist on how to make decisions. It's observe, orient, decide, and act. It's simple to remember, and the reason they keep it simple to remember is so you don't have to pull out a checklist every single time you want to make a decision.
Hey, real quick, I want you to do one thing for me, and I'm going to throw you off here. I want you at the top of observe, before observe, I want you to put rehearse. Right? Because I think that's very important to understand in trading. Rehearse. Now, they're not going to understand that. You have to actually spell it out. R-E-H-E-A-R. Anyway, rehearse, right? That's the one.
I'm going to give them more acronyms, so they're going to have to.
Okay.
Excel means rehearse.
All right.
Yeah. So Mickey hit it. Rehearsals. It's putting in the reps. Those are the terms that we've been familiarized with during this boot camp. You get in the sandbox. You put in the reps. You back test it. You get it to where it's muscle memory. So that when the time comes when you have to make a decision, you don't have to think, okay, I got to observe. Now I have to orient. Okay, now I'm going to use my brain and I'm going to start figuring everything else out. Going off of every single step, observe is nothing more than your sensors, your eyes, your ears, your brain, anything that pulls your attention, that is the observation. And it includes facts, it includes all the data, and it's just, if you have a camera on your front porch, that is one of your observations. If you're looking at a 30-minute chart, that is one of your observations. The only thing is observe, keep your head up, keep looking around, and then when you find something, you want to orient. You want to put everything you have, every asset you have into solving this problem. If you have indicators on a chart, or if you have a radio that has 20 other people on the other end of it that you can get to the situation, or whatever it is. If your alarm goes off, what is your next orientation? And then your decision. After you've oriented yourself to the situation and you've pulled in all of your assets and you're deciding what to do, you develop a plan. And Mick discussed, you have a PACE plan. You have your primary, you have your alternate, you have your contingency, and you have an emergency plan. And we don't have to get too far into how to write an op order or anything like that. But after you decide what to do and then you act on this situation, that's not even the end of the loop. That's just the beginning of the loop. Is exactly what it is. It's a OODA loop. It's not an OODA line. It's an OODA loop. If often you're going to run into people, and this is a point of frustration for myself, is I know when they know the answer. I know when one of my soldiers is asking me a question of what they should do. I know they know what to do. And what they're doing, their little brains are getting stuck in this OODA line. They've observed a problem, and then they want to come ask Drill Sergeant Cahill what to do. They've done all their work to align themselves and pulled all their assets to it. And then they stop and they never decide what to do. Worst, they decided what to do and they failed to act on it. And then something else we're going to get out of people is after the action, they've failed to realize that the situation is now over and changed, and they have to re-observe and reorient and decide and act on this whole new set of circumstances. Faster cycles the faster you can get through this OODA loop, the bigger the advantage you have
Exactly.
on what's going on.
So let's break this down. There's something. It was on day one, not day zero. I taught you how to read a certain time frame, right? And then later in the course, I had taught you how to take that time frame and sync it into the daily time frame, right? We did the hours, right? I want you guys reading the hours in the OODA loop, right? And why do you think I chose the hour? Right? Because you can get this new information is constantly being put on the TradingView chart, right? New information is constantly flowing into it. And so every hour is your checkpoint to see you do the OODA loop within this hour, and then the next hour you done, right? Like time to reset, new information is on the battlefield. OODA loop for a new hour. And that just practically goes to the 3 hour with the lines in the apexes, the daily classification, the higher time frame NFP Friday, the weekly high and low, right? It's always the OODA loop being reset. Just like now we're doing the candle science at the end of every re-engineering session, so we can do the OODA loop overnight and capture the low of the day and take out previous day high, et cetera, et cetera. Right?
Yeah, something I hear pretty often is, if so, then what? If then. I think I might have heard Austin say that maybe 100 times. I think I might have heard you say that 1,000 times. If this happens, then what? If then. And what you're alluding to is the decision-making framework, a process, a checklist. You're starting the checklist off with an if, and then you're going to end it after your action then. So something I want to push on people is whenever you're getting into your next decision, you still have 20 decisions in front of you that are going to be affected by this one action. So that's why it's a loop, because it's a continuous cycle. Once you act, situations change. And that's that.
The thing that makes this important in trading, though, is most people like to do the decision and the acting, but they act without ever rehearsing, right? The action has to be defined before you choose to act, right? So, like when I was studying close quarters, right, and I was with a unit that did a lot of close quarter stuff, right, and like small team shit, right? The biggest thing that was put out there was like, make this shit look like it just comes naturally, right?
Yeah.
And if we peel left and this happens, we do this. If we peel right, this happens, we do this. But in reality, every single action was rehearsed 100 times in peace, right? Remember the whole saying, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. Same thing goes with trading. Like, you cannot just think that you're that powerful of a decision maker. No, the action has to be an independent rehearsal that you know like the back of your hand. So as trading consumes, right, like you have a playbook that you fall back on, of that you trust, of plays that you trust. Just like Tom Brady just doesn't pull fucking plays out of his ass. Like, if defense is set up this way, I know I'm going to look at my cool little freaking Samsung thing on my forearm. I'm going to signal that we're doing this playbook. But what people don't see is that playbook by the team has been rehearsed thousands of times. So they make it look smooth, right? But it was not a smooth process to get to that act, right? It's information gathering, then decision. But that decision and that action also is rehearsed as an independent model. Just like I taught you, this is the daily profile, right? We learned to identify the market environment and the volatility condition, right? We don't trade around it because we have independent trade models for each type of reversal, range, trend, reversion, right? That we will independently train for. So when we say, hey, playbook reversal, we already know how we're going to position size. We already know the actions. All right, I'll shut up now. I think I got my point across.
Right, right on it. I did have something. Oh, the playbook. So you mentioned football plays, and it segues right into how many industries use this exact framework. Nearly every single sports industry studies this framework, the OODA loop. The police force all across America, and I bet you it would expand internationally. But here in America, every police department utilizes this framework, this exact framework right here. First responders, fire departments, emergency rooms, even Fortune 500 companies, they all use this framework because it's simple to understand, and they know it works. They know with no doubt in their mind, this framework is where everybody's going to lean when they get tunnel vision. Let's talk about tunnel vision for a second. When your brain gets overwhelmed with observations, when there's too many sensory inputs, too much information for you to consciously dissect, your brain takes over and it starts cutting sensories off. That's what your tunnel vision is. You're getting rid of senses so that you yourself can focus on the problem and try to figure out or try to decide what action you need to take. There's an author, his name's Grossman. He was another soldier. He's still alive today. He wrote a series of books about the psychology of training and what happens to the body and the mind during high stressful situations. And a story he was explaining was police officers, when they would use revolvers, they would go to the range and they would fire their rounds off and they'd take their casings and they'd put them in their pocket so that at the end of the range time, they didn't have to clean up the range and they could just walk off of it. What they were seeing was these police officers, they would go into live action situations or real world situations and they would use their firearm, and then the investigators wouldn't have any casings to mark or to figure out what happened on the scene. And the reason was because these officers, they're going to the range, they're firing their rounds, and they're putting their casings in their pockets. And then these same officers would go out in real world, use their weapon, and they'd walk off the scene with the casings in their pockets still. And it's because their brain was just overwhelmed with information and it started shutting things down, and it went into autonomous mode where it was like, hey, I do this mag change every day. I put these casings in this pocket every day. When it happens, their brain gets tunnel vision. They forget the decisions they're making at that moment because they made them 1,000 times in the past. And that's just where the brain wants to be. It wants to be where it knows to be. Now, something I wanted to touch on. Now, the buck stops. So I got that written down right here. The buck stops with you. And what that means to me is nobody else is going to be making these decisions for you. You're told be here at 5:30 for class. There's nobody on earth that is walking into your room and poking you and telling you to get to class. Nobody is coming in and telling you need to quit smoking. Nobody's coming in and telling you that it's time to do this. Every decision you make is up to you. That's actually the first question. I got 2 questions for this test. I'm going to give you both answers. First question, who's going to do it for you? And if you don't do it, who is? The answer is nobody. Nobody. You're the only one. The buck stops with you. The second question for this test is, who else has a vote? And the answer to that, life has a vote. Sometimes you're going to wake up and if you look at your life's candle, everybody has it open. Everybody has a close to their life. Everybody has a high wick. Everybody has a low wick. If you look at your daily life and you open up your monthly candle and look at your weekly candle and then look at your daily candle, and if you wake up and life has decided that you're going to have a bearish candle today, it's up to you to figure out how you can make your daily candle bullish. And if you have enough bullish daily candles, now you got a week bull, and now you got a month, and then eventually your life is a bullish trend all the way up, and at the end of it you'll be looking down and you'll be able to see, damn, that was a high road, that was a long road, it was a high mountain I climbed, and here you are sitting on top of it with however many good decisions you were able to conjure up throughout your life. So 2 things I want you to remember. Who's going to do it if you don't? Nobody. And then who else has a vote? everybody else. Everybody else has a vote on the outcome. Life has a vote on the outcome. Oh shit. So the only thing I really have now, I made this student handout, but you can write down OODA, and I think you'll be just fine, and you can figure everything else out. But the conclusion of what I wanted to discuss was this framework is nothing more than a tool that you can use to stop yourself from inaction. It's a tool that you can use when you see something needs to get done, but you decide that you're going to sit and watch TV. If you need to fill your tire on your lawnmower, I'm looking at my lawnmower. If you need to fill your tire on your lawnmower, it's up to you to fill it. And
Why
you go
is
through
your
an
lawnmower
OODA
in your
loop for something
office?
as simple as that. But if you're out and you see a car accident, the worst thing anybody can do when they see a car accident is fail to act, fail to provide aid. If you see your kid drop something on the ground, what are you going to do? Are you going to do the OODA loop for them? Or are you going to go pick up their tool? So I don't want to like get into my own, how I use the OODA loop, but
No, I
in
definitely,
conclusion,
I think it's good. Like I would ask you, like, want you to refer back to your military experience, right? Like when everything was moving fast, right? And you knew it was time to act. What were some of those things that told you not to act and just wait a couple more seconds and, gather more information? Because I tell everybody, like the markets, there's only two types of risk out here. There's three layers that you have to beat, but there's only two types of risk out there. There's data risk and price risk, right? So in your world, right, what are some of the examples where you had to say, hey, I know I have to do this action, but I'm going to wait just a couple more seconds before doing that action?
yeah. So we call it tactical pause, right? Tactical pause. And on teams, it's very, very simple to pause because you have 5 or 6 brains that are oriented on the same problem. And if any one of them sees a problem, then you're going to have the whole team pause, tactical pause, and we're going to figure out the problem. So an example I can give, this was 2018, North Afghanistan, as far north in Afghanistan as you could possibly get. It took us a long time. It was a 13,000-foot mountain we had to fly over. It took us, oh God, I would say 45 minutes just to climb to that altitude. Anyways, we were supporting the ground force on the ground, and there was a tree line that they were taking fire from, and we were oriented on the target, and we were going to make our first running pass on them. And what I saw in the front seat through my sensors was not what was being reported on the ground. And I was gun 1, I was front seat, gun 1, my gun 2, they were going to throw rounds on the exact same target I was about to throw rounds on. But what I was being explained was military age males with weapons oriented this direction and firing. Also, we made our pass. We were looking at them, and what I saw didn't check all the blocks. It was too young of a person, I thought. I didn't see any weapons, and they were just sitting there. It's almost like they were watching TV, watching the battle take place in front of them. And it was as simple as me saying to my pilot, I don't think this is them. And his response wasn't what I was expecting at the time, which was, no, it's them, engage. His response was, all right, we're off left. And we pulled off left, and we started our OODA loop all over again. And after we determined that it was exactly what we wanted in the situation and what we had been planning for, bam, went right back into engagement mode, and we were able to save the day, so to speak. Supporting the ground force was always our primary goal.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, the small example of observation and orienting, and for me, that decision that I made was a non-action. That's where I took a step back. I was like, I know what the next step is, but I need to not act. I need to not unsafe this weapon, and I need to pull off so that we can figure out, our systems again. But
So what,
no,
like one thing that like as they go through phase 3 and they build their trade plan and all that, I'm trying to get them to identify tilt, right? Like what is making you go tilt, 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 tilt? And I got a couple questions here, right? Like how do you separate like fear like from that useful risk awareness, and then like what internal signals do you use to tell you that your decision making like is starting to degrade, right? Because when you're in an environment where your brain is the decision making, and I get it, like pilots get 8 hours of sleep, all us fucking grunts had to survive off of 45, right? So like, but what are some things that you use to tell you that, like something like my decision making is starting to degrade, right?
yep.
And
So,
fear is starting to take over.
so the biggest thing I've noticed in my career was that anytime I get emotional with the mission, it takes away every single checklist I have in my head. Like you said, you rehearse the mission and you rehearse your contingencies and you rehearse your emergency plan 1,000 times before you go execute any one of them. But what I would notice is as I would get angry, if somebody was aiming a weapon in my direction, if somebody was pulling a trigger, if I was watching tracer rounds come at me, if anger jumped into it and all I wanted to do was get payback, that gets rid of my decision-making process. And that gets rid of every risk mitigating measure that I've taken. In aviation, we use something called an RCOP. It's combined risk output, right? Or combined risk program, whatever it's called. Another acronym that Army gave me. But it takes a lot of effort to develop this risk profile. It takes multiple people to come up with different contingencies. And anytime you fly outside of the restrictions that you've made within this risk profile, you are actively putting your life in danger. And we've learned this. Something we all say is a checklist. Every line in a checklist is written in blood. Every single step we take in aviation is because somebody got hurt in the past. So what happens in this next checklist? They add this line because they don't want you to get hurt also. So when you start throwing in emotion to your decision-making process, or you throw in anger to your mission profile, you're putting your life at risk. And that's extreme. To kind of go back to my lawnmower, my snowblower,
I mean,
actually.
if you think about it, right? So intraday trading is fast feedback, limited time to make decisions, predefined risk, and there's no room for emotional decisions, right? However, like us as traders, right, there's always got to be that balance of did it on those red days? Was this a red day because I stuck to my rules, I navigated the risk properly, or was this a red day because I started making emotional decisions, right? If it was because you followed your rules and it was just your time to pay that business expense, then like there needs to be no new line on that checklist. One thing I tell these guys is like, if you had a red day due to emotional decision making, then there needs to be an extreme change right then and there, right? One thing that I used to do is like whenever I would over position size or break my rules, I would pull out of trading live accounts under discounted brokers is a luxury. Trading prop account is a luxury, right? And if I can't take that over leveraged luxury, right? Serious, like then I need to remove that luxury out of my life because it's just going to further build the emotional decision making. So what I would do is I'd pull on the days I broke rules, I'd pull all money out of like AMP and put it in IBKR because IBKR forced me to pay 18 to 2100 for one micro, where AMP said you could have a mini for $1,000 worth of leverage, right? So I didn't earn the right to use that luxury, right? What are some things when you find yourself making emotional decisions, right, that you do to cut it off right there at the head so it doesn't further continue?
That's well, for me, simple answer, and that is starting my OODA loop all over again. It's backing up and looking at the problem from a new advantage point. It's if I do see my anger or my frustration or even joy or happiness coming in, and kind of wedging itself into my decision making process, what I do, to answer your question, Mick, take a step back, observe the problem, reorient, and decide the action without using my emotion.
Nice.
If I were to go into the stock market again, I'm brand new on this, but I think it would be losing a trade or watching the stocks fall when I'm in a long position and me jumping out of it. That would be an emotional response rather than taking a step back and like, no, my rules are set. I already pushed the start button and I'm not going to stop it until it hits stop.
Yeah.
So that's
I
how I
think
would go for it.
I think the exercise one that I have you on will teach you how to lose. You're going to lose about 155 times between now and January 1st, right? So that's going to help you understand that. And that brings me to my next question, right? So, like, I teach using fixed constants, not patterns, but fixed constants. And then when I war game both sides of the markets, right? So I can make decisions around what the market wants to do because I've accepted the ability to say, hey, right? When you talk to the CEO of the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, and all these big players, and they tell you, like, nobody can predict the market properly. It's all about statistics and decision making. You kind of get humbled and you listen, right? So I've accepted the fact that I'm never going to know the right answer. So I war game decision points in the intraday candle that I can make decisions whether it goes up, down, or stays sideways, right? So like that whole decision making quality versus pattern recognition, right? What do you think is better? And what do you think, what's the pros and cons of the decision making versus the pattern recognition, right? Because I know you've used a lot of, yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, I think so an event wheel, for example, I could get rid of this. I think pattern recognition is nothing more than a tool in order to orient me to the proper solution. If you've never, there's going to be some people that have never heard of a pattern wheel, but this is something that is used to figure out what time of day you're planning on getting attacked, and noon being up top, and then midnight being up. So it's 24-hour. I'm sorry, noon being on the bottom, 24-hour clock being on top. So, anyways, on the first day of the month, that's the first wheel. If something happens at 6 a.m, you plot a dot right there. 6 a.m, that happened, and then on the second, there's another 6 a.m. attack. Bam, another dot. And then on the next day, there's another wheel, another dot. And what you get is a pattern recognition cycle. You get to understand, well, we get mortars at this time every single day from this location. We get small arms attack on this road only on Mondays for some reason. And this tool right here is nothing more than the ability for me to orient on the problem. So
yeah,
to answer your question, pattern recognition is a tool that I
yeah
use
in trading one thing. Yeah, in trading you have to be I definitely love the patterns, but like you have to make sure that those patterns where your decision making comes from, right? Because what will happen is, like, I use the breaker and the failure swing. You're going to see bullish and bearish breakers all over the damn place, right? If you jump down to a low enough time frame, if you jump, like, they're going to be there, right? But it's exactly what you said. It's a tool to guide your decision making, right? But it shouldn't be the primary source of your decision making, because that's where you get fixated on that pattern. And when the environment shifts, right, you're still fixated on a pattern and you didn't notice the shift that makes that pattern irrelevant. So we always got the chaos of, experience can't be trained, it can only be earned, and you can only earn that through deployments and blah 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 blah. And like, I'm not a big believer in that. I think experience can be rehearsed way more than a one-time or two-time event, right? What do you so at what point, what are your thoughts on that? And then the second part of the question, at what point of your career did situations start to look familiar instead of chaotic, based off of that experience?
Um, so I'm going to answer both of them with just one story. The first time I
Wait. Nope. Hey, remember the fundamental rules of storytelling. It always starts with no shit, there I was.
So no shit, there I was.
You remember,
middle
was it
of
you?
Fort Campbell, Kentucky, right? And this was the very first time I've done a pitchback turn. Pitchback turn is just orienting your aircraft onto the target when it's greater than 90 degrees, right? So for example, I'm flying north heading, and I take fire from the south. A pitchback turn would be a simple nose up, flip the aircraft over, and then orient my gun on whatever target I had. First time I ever did it, I'm 1,000 feet in the air, right? And I set my low altitude bug, 1,000 feet. And that's how I practice. I pretend my low altitude bug is the ground. And I probably did 50 pitchback turns in the air at 1,000 feet before I actually realized a pitchback turn is meant for low altitude. It's meant for NOE flight. It's meant for nap of the earth, right? While if you're at 1,000 feet and you took fire from anywhere, altitude doesn't matter anymore. You're probably going to want to get lower. But if you're already nap of the earth, you want to pitch your aircraft up and then orient on the target. So that was my next skill that I had to master. I figured I could do it in the air at 1,000. Next step is I'm going to drop it down to 500, and then I'm going to drop it down to 100, and then I'm going to get into actual NOE environment, like there'd be like 20 feet off the ground or something like that, doing pitchback turns. The first time I actually had to do a pitchback turn in combat, what ended up happening at my left door, we took RPG fire. And this is why the framework's here. This is why the checklist is here. Because when your body goes into survival mode, it doesn't want to make things up. So what my body did without me deciding to do anything, I looked out my left door, saw an RPG, and I did a pitchback turn onto the target. And it took me about half a second to orient my aircraft. And that, if I can relate that decision that I made to this OODA loop, then what's going to end up happening is I observed the target. I quickly oriented my machine onto the target, and I decided what to do, and I took that action. If I didn't have the hundreds of practices under my belt during that time and I took fire, what my brain would have done was, okay, there's fire. What do I do? Okay, I'm going to orient on this target. Okay, yep. So there's my pitchback turn. Okay, now what do I do? Okay, yeah, I'm going to do this next. Oh, and that would have taken me about 5 seconds of taking RPG fire. I hope that answered your question. I hope that
yeah, man,
got into a real world event that I could relate this OODA loop.
Yeah, man.
I have three things that if before we go, there are three things that I want to make sure the people listening take with them from this class is first two questions, right? Who's going to do it if you don't? Everybody knows nobody is going to do it if you don't do it. And then the second question, who also has a vote in determining whether or not this is a bullish or a bearish candle, and that's life. And then here's the second or the third thing I want you to just take away. Sometimes the lack of an action, sometimes if you fail to take an action, that is worse than the wrong action. Sometimes you just have to make a choice and act upon it, and that alone is better than not doing anything at all. So I think
Holy shit.
this
God,
is
that's probably the best piece of advice for fucking war fighters. Probably the worst piece of advice for intraday traders, but God, that
but
fucking,
it's true. It's true.
it is so true. Like that right there saved my ass so many times. Like, you've got to make a decision, like shit's going down, right? Build the parachute from
Going
the
down.
ground up as you're going down,
Going
right?
down.
Like, and that has saved my ability to just deal with the chaos, right? So many times. I fucking love that piece of advice.
Yeah. Yeah. 30 ACR was a good unit, Mick. 30 ACR was one of the best. It definitely, it shaped me. It formed me as a person. And then from that unit, from 30 ACR, I went to the 82nd, and I thought those soldiers were subpar. I thought they were substandard to the 3rd ACR, just with
Oh God, yeah.
the leadership we had in the.
Well, remember, we took over for the 82nd, and we're not impressed when we got into that their AO, right? Like
Yeah,
they
those
all up.
those people in Jizernov thought that they could push us around just like the 82nd, didn't they?
we showed their asses. They knew real quick they couldn't do that.
Oh shit! No, not these guys. Wait till they leave, and then we'll start again.
Yeah. All right, dude. I really appreciate you. We need to jump on a call sometime today so I can get you working on exercise 1. You've been listening to Best Loser Win?
Oh yeah, and I'm all over it. I'm about halfway through number 2 for me.
Good. You got 3 this week. And then like I want to make sure that exercise 1 is being conducted, and like I'm serious, right? Like anytime I'll brief that to you one-on-one, and Pocket will brief that to you one-on-one to make sure you're doing that exercise right correctly, and like we'll go from there. Anyway, I appreciate you at this time. If you guys have any questions, right? Any questions for Ryan, right? Either raise your hand, come up on stage and ask, or type them in the chat. And you better have fucking questions, because like this is a good opportunity to get somebody who actually doesn't, he's not an academic on decision making. He doesn't have his like degree in, operations and decision making. He actually lived this shit for 20 plus years. So get up here, ask a question. Doesn't matter. There's no stupid questions. Maybe there are. Let's go. We're not leaving until somebody asks a fucking good question. Stop thanking him for his service.
It never gets old, man. I gotta tell you. I got a lot of respect for appreciation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to make one comment because I just to go back on one of your things, and I thought it related really well to trading, but I don't know if it actually got brought back in with any physical examples. But the tunnel vision thing that you talked about, I thought was pretty cool. And the one thing that we like when we get tunnel vision, because we haven't necessarily put the reps in, we need to put in. We're not going into the proper autopilot. We're getting into panic mode or flight mode instead of fight mode. So I think just realizing when you're in that tunnel vision and trying to get yourself out of that is something I think a lot of us fail to do well, including myself for a while, where I'd just, instead of pulling back, looking at the whole picture, seeing my outs, seeing my ways of managing the trade properly, I just focus in and go, it's still going short. It's going against me, but it's going to go the direction I want it to. And again, you probably might have seen some of that example shown even in the book, Best Loser Wins, is how you get too focused on something that's going the wrong direction and just keep thinking it's going to finally pay you back, but it owes you nothing. It's not going to pay you back. You need to pull back.
Absolutely. That's my favorite. Yes, that's my favorite part of the book, is like it's all relative to what we've all been through. The one thing I can tell you about every single trader in this room, my favorite part of that book is when the wife walks in and says, "No, the market's gone down. I don't know anything. The market's gone down." And like he was at a place of tilt, right? We've all been on the place of tilt where we're like, it's a DNP day and we keep trying to fade it. It's a DNP day, we keep trying to fade it, right? And we just know that little voice inside of us is like, dude, you're blowing this account and you know it, right? And that point right there is when you have to do the OODA loop, right? I'll even encourage you guys. I've set the framework for the class for you guys to do the OODA loop and the pace plan for every single hour, just so you can get familiar with it, right? Like, guess what? I was doing it at 1800 last night. I was doing it at 1900 last night. Caught the longs the previous day high. Did it at 2100. Did it at 2200. Fell asleep. Woke up at 4 o'clock. Saw that I had left the limit order on. Hit TP'd and left the order on. Had to do the OODA loop. Up, I'm down $700 of $700 profit. Yay, right? Do the OODA loop, right? Don't make conscious decision, like don't make reactionary decision. Do the OODA loop. Do it at 5 o'clock in the morning. Do it at 6 o'clock in the morning. Just it's a constant OODA loop, because guess what? At the end of the day, information is being put on your screen. Decisions need to be made. All right, risk needs to be mitigated. Right. So do those OODA loops so that you don't. Make it a conscious effort, because if you make a conscious effort to do the OODA loop all throughout your day, the probability of you going tilt and getting into that panic state decision making will not happen, right? And then if it does happen, it's because you won't accept the information on your screen, and you know that's when it's time to reset that edge to the next day and get the log out as fast as you can. All right. So we got a question from DB Tech. Or Dave, what is the hardest situation that you have been in where the OODA loop kicked in? I know you gave one example. All right, we had this driver named Patterson. I'm just kidding.
I'll go real quick. We are a little over time, and I want to keep you guys. But one of the best thing I have ever done in my entire life happened right after I retired from the military. I had 2 properties in North Carolina. I sold both of them. I had a 39-foot Class A RV that I moved. My wife and I moved our 2 kids in. I have twin daughters, twin girls. We moved into a 39-foot Class A, and we drove 14,000 miles. We saw 36 different campsites, 24 different states, and 13 national parks. Friends and family along the way. It took us 14 months to do, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever done in my life. But every single stop we made, every single gas station, every single restaurant, and every single campsite, I had to reset my OODA loop. I had to look, all right, what's weather like to our next stop? What's our maintenance on our vehicles looking like? What's our budget looking like? What's this looking like? So the hardest situation that I've ever been in was taking my family 14,000 miles around America for 14 months. And every single stop, OODA loop kicked in, and I had to refigure out what was next on my to-do list.
Tell me, use the physical map or physical road map. You didn't use a GPS, like a 1980s, Christmas vacation, like map and all that, right? Like a summer vacation. Did you?
Yeah, my wife, big old hat. She had a map in her passenger seat, driving along.
Heck yeah.
It was great, bro. It was great.
Dude, that's epic. All right, last question, and this is a good one, right? All right, Laura says, how have you used the OODA loop in the boot camp?
This one's easy, right? Every morning I wake up. Every single fucking morning when I wake up, it is reorienting myself on today's mission. Every single day I observe it, I orient it, and I decide what I got to do today, and I act on it. And it goes back into me talking about my life candle. Am I going to be sitting around today? Is that going to help my candle become this bullish candle, life candle at the end of my time here? Or is sitting down watching everybody love Raymond going to make my life candle? So I use it in this boot camp? Oh, absolutely. I use it just a decision-making model every single day. Because if you don't have a checklist, you know, you have a checklist for something difficult like changing the engine on your car. Why not have a checklist for something simple like waking up in the morning? You know, just
Yeah, because
live on
those
my
checklists done enough times become ingrained into you, and then you don't like have to look at the checklist, right? Because you already
That's right.
know the checklist, although you should still look at the checklist. All right, if you continue cycling through the OODA loop and still have no clear answer or actionable decision, what should you do? You're human being computer overload. Yeah.
It happens. It
Yeah.
happens.
That just means you need to
Sometimes
wait
you
for
need
more
to,
data.
yeah, you need to phone a friend, you know, or take the audience's opinion. Sometimes you just can't do it alone. But
In intraday trading, when you hit that point, right? I'll tell you right now, the obvious has not appeared. You sit on your hands and wait for more data to print on the chart, right? The obvious hasn't appeared, right? We don't like, just like you heard him give the description of, he's not shooting those middle-aged males unless it was obvious. Just like you shouldn't be taking trades unless it is so freaking obvious that you'd kick yourself for not taking it, right? Like, so you wait, right? You wait for more data. Remember, OODA loop isn't just this magical acronym. There's a data piece that you make decisions from, right? And that decision making has been rehearsed. That action has been rehearsed. It all has been defined, right? You can't just say if-then statements and then sit in the try to trend trade in a range of market and the if-then statement hasn't been defined, right? Like, these are like points of like that will destroy your bank account. All right. So with that being said, get some time on my clock today, so we can talk about exercise 1 very in detail, so I can start seeing your numbers.
all right, bud. I'll see you.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you for listening to him, and now be prepared because everybody's gonna be DMing you, right? So play nice.
Bring it.
All right,
See you guys.
sounds good. All right, Pocket, I want you to make sure that like this YouTube is public, so everybody has access to it as well. All right, and
Sure.
then we are good to go. All right, later, haters.